Good morning. Welcome to Unity Church-Unitarian on this misty, almost autumn morning. I am the Reverend Karen Gustafson, retiring interim minister of congregational care. I am sharing this morning's service with Jim Mulvey, one of Unity's seasoned worship associates, who has provided me with great kindness and support and care in my time here. Welcome to all of you who are joining us for the first time. There will be a coffee hour following the service today, and those who have been around for a long time will be joyfully welcoming you. You will also have an opportunity, those of you who are joining us virtually, to join in a coffee hour. So we're certainly glad that you are here. We hope that your joys are expanded and your burdens are lifted. Please rise in body or in spirit. Oh, and Jim, will you rise in body or spirit? And all right.
We are now in the days of awe. Those 10 days between Rosh Hashanah, which began last Friday evening, and Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, which will be next weekend. It is a most solemn time in Jewish tradition when the Almighty opens the book of life to inscribe the names of the righteous. For 10 days, the faithful examine their lives and identify shortcomings and transgressions in their actions. It's a time to turn from those transgressions and shortcomings and to return to a new beginning. It is a time to seek forgiveness from those we have wronged and to offer forgiveness to those who have caused us harm. One resolves to practice more righteous behavior so that one may live a more ethical life. The faithful beseech the Almighty to write their names in the book of life before the book is sealed for another year on Yom Kippur. The High Holy Days are a truly beautiful and meaningful and inspiring time. As we gather here this morning, we may want to look at our own daily lives and consider the simple words, "To those who I have wronged, I ask forgiveness. To those I helped, I wish I did more. To those I neglected, I ask your understanding. To those who helped me, I sincerely thank you." Gathered here in body and spirit, now we turn to light our chalice. May the flame we now kindle serve us as we turn to embrace the past, the present, and the future. Looking back, let this flame burn as a memorial to all those who over decades labored to establish this church and its traditions. Looking ahead, may this flame lead us in the pursuit of truth and the beloved community. In particular, may it guide us as we gather together in love and understanding next spring to call our next minister. Finally, may this flame remind us to live in the present and the present moment, to set ourselves to the present task, which is to build an ever more inclusive and loving community. Come, let us worship together.
Please join me in responsive reading number 655 in the gray hymnals, Change Alone is Unchanging. Whosoever wishes to know about the world must learn about it in its particular details. In searching for truth, be ready for the unexpected.
Change alone is unchanging.
The same road goes both up and down.
The beginning of the circle is also its end.
Not I, but the world says it. All is one.
And yet everything comes in season.
Please be seated. For the embracing meditation, please refer to your order of service. Each time we gather for worship, we set aside a moment to expand the caring ministry of this congregation. Together, we recognize the cycles of life and death, the circle of love, compassion, and witness that is at the center of this and every sacred community. We stand at the side of parents and teachers and all those whose primary spiritual practice is the care of children. With those who live with grief or chronic pain, with illnesses seen and unseen, with mental disability or addiction. We pray for our neighbors in prison whose care for family members in ill health, those who struggle with loneliness, and those who strive to stay afloat amidst poverty. Our lives are blessed by those who face their final days with honesty, and by those who rise above heartbreak and challenge in all of its forms. And we pray for those in harm's way, for wisdom and strength of the leaders of the world, and for the people of this courageous congregation, as together we live into our longing to embody and to help build the beloved community. Today we mourn the death and celebrate the life of Lawrence Larry Quist, who died August 28th at the age of 74. Larry was the custodian at Unity Church for quite a few years when Roy Phillips was the minister here. Larry is missed by his daughter Laura Quist Knox and family and friends who loved him dearly. And we continue to send healing prayers and wishes to Eric Starkey, Karen Whitlock's son, whose kidney surgery this past week went well, and he is already at home to recover with an encouraging report from his medical team. There are so many other concerns, questions, and people that we carry around today in our hearts. And so we name them aloud or in whispers, now in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. Robin Monahan. Eternal and loving Spirit, help us to claim your presence in all its forms. Help us to pause among the distractions of our days to see the holy in each other's eyes, to honor the faltering steps we take to move toward one another across differences, to navigate the rocky path of forgiveness of ourselves and one another. Be with us as we bring our whole and herding self into the complex challenges of living our values in the many layered spaces we inhabit. Eternal Spirit, open us again and again to opportunities for those, for love and generosity and hope. May we find in those stores of gratitude and grace that allow our broken hearts to open to the fullness of possibility and to embrace one another in the face of our many differences and our abiding complexities. Help us to know one another beyond our fear and doubt, so that our connections may be strengthened by the changes we embrace at every turn. In love's name, we pray. Amen. Blessed be.
I have walked through many lives, some of them my own, and I am not who I was, though some principle of being abides, from which I struggle not to stray. When I look behind, as I am compelled to look before I can gather strength to proceed on my journey, I see the milestones dwindling into the horizon and the slow fires trailing from the abandoned campfires over which scavenger angels wheel on heavy wings. Oh, I have made myself a tribe out of my true affections, and my tribe is scattered. How shall the heart be reconciled to its feast of losses? In a rising wind, the manic dust of my friends, those who fell along the way, bitterly stings my face. Yet I turn, exulting somewhat with my will intact to go wherever I need to go. And every stone on the road is precious to me. In my darkest night, when the moon was covered and I roamed through wreckage, a nimbus-clouded voice directed me, live in the layers, not on the litter. Though I lack the art to decipher it, no doubt the next chapter in my book of transformations is already written. I am not done with my changes.
Well, it's September at Unity Church, a time of comings and goings. For those of you who are new to Unity, I am the Reverend Karen Gustafson, and today marks the end of my one-year tenure as Interim Minister of Pastoral Care. The Reverend Laura Cowton now ably occupies this position, which was ably staffed under other titles by a string of other ministers who have supported the caring ministry of Unity Church in a variety of ways for many decades. Today marks the beginning of my fourth and final retirement from parish ministry. If you count my internship here at Unity Church in 1984, and don't subtract the 3 years of my previous nominal retirement, I have been employed as a Unitarian Universalist by Unitarian Universalist congregations for 39 years, just under half of my life. I have had my eye on my best used by date for a while, and feel that I perhaps have some other uses before I expire. A week or so ago, someone asked me what I would be speaking about today, and I said the title of my sermon was Celebrating Change, Learning to Hold More. Celebrating change, my friend said. What an interesting idea, celebrating change. Yeah, I said, I've been reflecting for a long time on the ways to talk about change, almost as though it is that this way we look at change so often as a necessary evil, a necessity that occurs when one fails to maintain stasis. Like the gold standard is somehow achieving stability, consistency, dependability, finding the sweet spot, and then holding on to it at all costs. We like variety, yes, but after an adventure or a travel or a challenge or a loss or a pandemic, we want things to return to normal. That mythical solid state where we can relax into the familiar and remain until something causes it to fail. In this narrative, change seems to equate with the failure of stability. Maybe celebration is too much to ask. Maybe what I really want to consider is a narrative in which we normalize change and find space to hold and embrace and maybe even leverage the complexity of our responses when something moves from one state to another. In her wonderful book, Trusting Change, Finding Our Way Through Personal and Global Transformation, Karen Herring, Unity's previous interim minister of congregational care, writes, if we have been lucky enough to know some stability and structure, at some point we too will discover that, whether suddenly or slowly, what we thought was solid and dependable can dissolve into shapeless disarray, like the goo inside a chrysalis. It might begin in disbelief as we stand with an unexpected pig slip in hand, or we might feel like the loss of solid ground beneath our feet when important relationship comes to an end, or even when a new one begins. Or it could be the dizzying turn of perspective as an unfamiliar voice on the phone delivers heart-stopping news, maybe of cancer, or maybe cure, perhaps of a prized award that we have long wanted or a failure we have long feared. Whether long-term or suddenly occurring, the experience of being awash in chaos, adrift in a state of goo, is more typical of everyday life than we might want to believe. So what would it take for us to believe in the life-giving reality of goo, as Karen calls it? And why does that matter? Well, one reason that it matters is that the energy that we put into resisting the inevitable is energy, well, often wasted. Change, at its base, is natural. Seasons and weather and aging and decay and growth and loss and death and renewal are built into every moment of every day. Civilization, religion, institutions of all kind are by design created to subdue and direct and control nature, or at least moderate its impact. Part of what has turned many of us away from more basic concepts of traditional faith is the grounding belief in the dominion of humans over nature. And yet, we participate both willingly and both consciously and unconsciously in a civilization that perpetuates minute to minute the direction of the change we claim to resist. That idea, the resistance of the idea that we do in fact have dominion over nature, is not something we think about in our daily lives a lot. And what I want you to hear here is not a diatribe or a judgment. This is not political or apocalyptic. This is an observation about a particular cultural relationship to change, which is its own kind of energy crisis. It takes energy to resist and control and be prepared for every possible contingency. If we were to regard change as inevitable, natural, ever-present, generative, and ever-available opportunity for grief and gratitude, by nature uncomfortable and challenging, and lean into that reality with curiosity and resourcefulness as a kind of normal, what kind of energy and creativity might that release? As I age, I find myself approaching change more and more in this way. I sometimes muse about how much more energy I have when I am not, for example, obsessing about the weather. I have been known to watch the news at both 6 and 10 to see if the weather forecast had changed in the last 4 hours. What I know is that the weather doesn't care. It changes all the time, and it is indifferent to my needs or concerns. What I know is that over the course of a lifetime, when I view changing weather as a teacher instead of as a foe, I am vastly more capable of dealing with uncontrollable and unexpected changes. I keep a shovel and kitty litter and a AAA card and a blanket in the car in the winter and a raincoat and an umbrella in the summer, and I stay inside if I can when the weather is harsh. If I forget those things, I get wet or cold, and then I get warm and dry. And more recently, I have been doing what I can with new energy to cultivate resilience in the face of weather, to practice gratitude for whatever is happening outside, because the rain does nourish the ground and the plants, and the hot sun does dry up things that need to get dried up, and there is beauty all around regardless of the weather. I also try to practice acceptance and resourcefulness and adaptability. And I am acutely aware of how much energy civilized people spend talking about the inconvenience of needing to deal with the weather. Gratitude, acceptance, resourcefulness, and adaptability. Could these become part of the conversation? These practices, I think, are a good place to begin to start thinking about how we normalize change. These are feelings and practices that ask of us to expand the range and complexity of responses to our experience of change. There are other places, other feelings and practices, of course, and we find them when we must. But I think about other categories of things that our relationship to is limiting. I think about categories of change to which our cultural narrative attaches value, and particularly limiting sets of emotional responses. Marriage, if we were to vote as a plus, I'm getting married. Positive response, right? Divorce, negative response. Pregnancy, positive response. Death, negative response. Graduation, right? But we attach these clusters of feelings to these particular clusters of changes that we categorize as positive or negative and respond to with a set of phrases that often lead us to a particular narrative. These are all changes. If you've ever browsed the greeting card aisles at Walgreens, you know what I mean. If you've ever tried to find just the right card in the sympathy section for a family member who has just experienced the death of a child to a car accident, and another for a family of a 97-year-old whose stroke has left her unresponsive in a care facility for the last 5 years, you will find rows and rows and rows of cards that contain some form of, "I am sorry for your loss," that point up the difficulty of capturing the complexity of change, which is death. I wonder how these canned responses inherently limit our capacity to live in the layers around these inevitable changes. In the year that my ministry has been with you, I have had occasion to hold space for many of you in the face of life changes, life transitions, painful, sometimes devastating. The story that I have shared many times that I have found most helpful is the story that I found in the book entitled Proverbs of Ashes: Violence, Redemptive Suffering, and the Search for What Saves Us by Rita Nakashima Brock and Rebecca Parker. Rebecca Parker was the president of the Star King School for Ministry, our Unitarian Universalist Seminary in Berkeley. In this book, she shares her own story. She was working as a Methodist minister in a church in Puget Sound, Washington. Married, she became pregnant. Her husband was not ready for parenthood, and so she submitted to an illegal abortion, which rendered her infertile. A few months later, he left her. All stability lost, she struggled for months to regain her sense of meaning and selfhood. One night, she lost the will to live. She resolved to walk into the waters of Lake Union and let the water take her. As she approached the dune above the lake, she saw what appeared to be a row of sawhorses and some moving figures. As she drew near, she saw the sawhorses were telescopes and that the figures were members of the Seattle Astronomy Club, out to look at the moons of Jupiter. She writes, "Before I could make my way through the line, one of them looked up from his eyeglass and presuming me to be an astronomer, said with enthusiasm, 'I've got it focused perfectly on Jupiter. Come, take a look.' I didn't want to be rude or give away my reason for being there, so I bent down and I looked in the telescope. There was Jupiter, banded red and glowing. "Isn't it great?" he said. It was great. Jupiter was beautiful through the telescope. The amateur astronomer focusing his lens didn't know me. He didn't know why I was there. He assumed I was there because the night sky was a wonder to behold. Across the sheen of dark water, the lights of the city shimmered. Overhead, the sky was wild with pinpoints of fire. I couldn't kill myself in the presence of these people who had gotten up in the middle of a cold spring night with their home-built Radio Shack telescopes to look at the planets and the stars. It would be wrong to think of this moment as one in which joy triumphed over desire or life defeated the desire for death. Such a view assumes that bad feelings need to be excised or suppressed by stronger, better feelings. But what happened for me was my heart opened up and I could hold more. This story is powerful for me in my own life as I think about what it means to cultivate the capacity to hold more, and how that capacity helps me to face change in all of its complexity. To come here with a fixed ending open to the possibility that so I came here with a fixed ending, open to the possibility that I would offer my love and care, and that we in turn might be changed by each other. As the song says, that we might be changed for good. And perhaps, without really knowing what was happening, the heart of Unity Church has opened up in this way as well, as I have felt you caring for me over and over again, as we formed the bonds and connections of pastor to person. I was feeling the oncomingness of some emotional incontinence, as my husband would call it. After many years of institutional stability made possible by a 21-year ministry, Unity had the experience of unwelcomed changes, beginning with the retirement of Rob and Jan Eller Isaacs, delayed by the pandemic itself, the illnesses and subsequent death of Rob Eller Isaacs, the departure of two beloved associate ministers, Reverend Lisa Friedman and Karen Herring, a ministerial search that ended without a settled candidate, and the hiring of Reverend Kathleen as interim senior and me as congregational care, with the guarantee that we would only be here for a short time. That is a lot of change to absorb. I am leaving now, and Kathleen will be leaving in the spring, and Reverend Laura will continue to be here, we hope, and there will be another settled minister. And the normal changes that are at Unity Center have held, perhaps in more creative and complex ways than ever before. Babies and children in this next coming year and beyond will be dedicated, and teens will come of age, and marriages and Christmas pageants and death will happen, and those lives will be celebrated. There will be Wellspring Wednesdays and multicultural education and music and worship and comings and goings and grief and gratitude. There will be disappointments and recoverings, and through it all, if you can lean in to the complexity of this as normal and natural and persistent, with curiosity and attention to what is emerging out of the goo, there will be for you new beginnings without end. Gratitude, acceptance, resourcefulness, adaptability, these feelings and practices ask us to expand the range and complexity of our responses to our experience of change, to open our hearts to hold more. This means that those other feelings of loss and grief this means also that those feelings of loss and grief and longing for more are all a part of it, but they are not all of it. And this, I believe, ministerial transition is a reality in every congregation. These changes are, for better and for worse, a norm in congregational life. Every one of us, every one of your ministers forever, has come here with the intention of offering the best that we have in the service of this faith as we understand it. We are all imperfectly gifted, and when we leave, we will leave you with our imperfect gifts to use as you will to strengthen the core of the congregation, which has always been yours. At best, shared ministry is yours, shared with those who lead you, and not the other way around. I am so grateful to have been afforded this opportunity to come full circle, to return with some well-honed love and some wisdom, and to enter into the days ahead with gratitude and confidence in the continuing power and the beauty of this beloved community. We are not done with our changes. Thank you. What's next?
Your support of the church is an expression of the promises we make to each other and to the world. The contributions you make enable us to do the work we have pledged to do with our church, within our church community and out in the world. Each Sunday, the majority of our offering is passed on to community partners with whom we share a common cause. Today, the larger portion of our offering will be shared with Beyond Walls Urban Squash. It is a year-round program for students in grades 6 to 12 from economically disadvantaged families. Its after-school programming at the University of Minnesota combines educational enrichment, health, and wellness through the sport of squash and civic leadership development. In 2022, 100% of its participants graduated from high school on time and were accepted in a variety of post-secondary schools. Beyond Walls is a shining example of imagination producing amazing results. Please give as generously as you can to support their fall programmings. Will the ushers please come forward?
And now, ways that you can find yourself throughout the rest of the week. If you'd like to find yourself at Unity, our weekly class for newcomers and inquiries, the conversation will take place today at 10:15 in the Gannett Room, which is upstairs on the second level. The topic this week is Unitarian Universalist history. And the cottage meetings hosted by Unity's ministerial search team begin this week. Cottage meetings are opportunities for the congregation to gather, to share ideas, and to listen to others about our needs and wishes for the future of Unity Church. The first two meetings will be held September 20th and 27th at 7:10 p.m. in person at Unity Church, with more meetings to be scheduled both in person and online. The ministerial search team looks forward to connecting with you, with the congregation, with your questions and ideas. And now, Reverend Kathleen has an announcement.
Thank you so much, Karen. For those who may not know me, I'm Kathleen Roland, serving as your interim senior minister. And first of all, I just want to say, Karen, you couldn't have offered a more perfect sermon for this Sunday. Not only about this transition, your transition, but acknowledging all of the changes that preceded your arrival, which were substantial. And you have entered into this ministry with such grace and grit and gravitas, and most of all, humor. And so you have given so many gifts to this congregation and to me personally. So in honor and recognition of Reverend Karen's ministry with us, you are all invited to the center room in between the services for some cake and celebration. Grab coffee from Parish Hall and then join us in thanking Karen for saying yes, because we were in a quandary and we needed someone with your experience and wisdom, and the fact that you're a Minnesotan didn't hurt at all. Knowing the culture, wouldn't you know? And so please join us. And, you know, I just have to say, because I knew you, because I knew you, we have been changed for good. Love you.
Oh, thank you. Standing is such a Minnesota thing. I love it. I can't remember what happens next. Oh, yeah. We are going to sing. We're going to sing Love Will Guide Us. It's number 131. And now may the peace which passes understanding, which the world can neither give nor take away, be and abide with you all. Until we meet again, go in peace. Do you want
Amen.